to this free 2016 IBPS Success Academy series that we have started. In fact, today would be the third session. We've already completed 2 sessions, right? I'm sure all of you took complete advantage of the first 2 sessions that we had. The first one was 5 habits to kick. The second one was 4 ways to solve aptitude questions. And today's session, we're going to exclusively focus on 3 topics that you need to focus in English. Right? So before we get started, I'd quickly like to acknowledge those of you who've logged in today. Manik, Madhuri, Bhavana, Sandesh. There's someone called K. Hi. Hema, Manik, Shiva, Sajid. Okay. Hi, Jeevan. And there are many others who had logged in earlier, I guess. I'm just looking at the ones whom I can see right now. Milind. So we have Naveen. Okay. Quite a lot of you, and it's going so fast. I'm not able to acknowledge all of you. But welcome to all of you. It's great to have you guys here this evening. We're going to look at the 3 topics. I'm not going to give that out right now, but we'll go one by one, right? Alright, so the first topic that we're going to focus on is spot the error. Yeah? So when you think about spotting the error or finding the error, everybody thinks it's very challenging, but it's really not. Right? The more you practice this particular question type, the more confident you get to attempt this question. So the reason I say this is because then you become aware and get to know the possible types of errors to look out for. So this is what we are going to do in today's session. Okay? So when it comes to spot the error, right? We understand we need to be familiar with certain topics. Let's quickly look at this particular question type and some of the things that we need to keep in mind. So we have the first question. We're going to take this as an example and then we're going to see why this particular topic is important to focus and what are some of the other topics we will learn from it. Right? The first one we have is the victim trying to tell us what has happened, but his words were not audible. So some of you have come back and said it's error. The error is in part B. So what has gone ahead and helped you arrive at the error? Where was the clue word? So Sajid has given me the answer, right? So one of the things that we understand from this question is we need to look at what time the action is taking place in the context. And we have hint words. So can one of you point out what the hint words are in the question? So Sony says, it's option B. But the rest of you have come back and said it's option B. But my question is, can you quickly identify what is the word or what are the words in the context which is helping you arrive at B being the answer? Yes, very good, Bhavana. Right? Not only that, that's right, Madhuri, the entire context is in past tense. So, Shalu is correct. Some of the words that give us a hint is tried, right? And where? Exactly, Kirti. Right? So, obviously, we know that this has to be changed. B, because it says has happened, which is a present perfect tense. We need a past perfect tense. So all we need to do is, so basically when I focus on spot the error, right? So the things that I learn are just basic grammar constructions. So I might have errors pertaining to prepositions. I might have errors pertaining to pronouns. I might have errors pertaining to adjectives or adverbs, right? Word class, conjunctions. I might have errors pertaining to subject-verb agreement. Now, because I am focusing on this particular spot the error question, there are other questions that I can go ahead and solve. So let's look at what are the other types of questions, because I'm focusing on this particular topic, spot the error or finding errors. What are the other topics that will help me? Sentence improvement is one such question type, right? It's the same concept, it's the same approach. I still need to have a good understanding of basic grammar constructions, right? So here, again, let's look at our question in front of us. Everybody was alarmed with the news of his murder, and the one letter that is in bold in the context is with, and my options are on, after, at, and no improvement. So we need to look at what can be the correct answer to replace it with. So some of you are saying on, some of you are saying be, some of you are saying, in fact, all of you have given me all the three options. Right? Now let's quickly go back and look at the question carefully and understand what are our keywords. What are our keywords from the question? So those of you, some of you came back and gave me some keywords from the previous question, right? Tried, where. Those were some of the keywords that helped us arrive at the answer. So for this question, what is your keyword? I'm only getting answers. Yes, Malik, correct. Alarmed is the keyword, yes. Okay, so usually when you have alarmed, obviously that's our verb, right? The action word. And then the word following it is a preposition. In fact, all the options that I have are prepositions, right? So we're looking at verb plus preposition collocation, right? We're looking at two words that will normally go hand in hand. So having said that, usually what are the prepositions that get connected or associated with alarmed out of these three options? Think about it and tell me. Also, let's understand the context, right? The context is saying everybody was alarmed. The option that we have is with the news of his murder. So again, another keyword is for you is news. It's a bad news, right? It's about someone getting murdered. Shiva, the two keywords that are highlighted from the sentence is alarmed, where we are looking at, okay, what is the common prepositions that get associated with alarmed? That's one way to approach it. And we're also looking at other keywords, understanding the meaning that the context is giving. So I want you to think of, so when I say alarmed, you're looking at, what do you understand by alarm? Alarm means sudden fear or concern, right? So having said that, now we understand, all of us agree that the preposition in the context is incorrect, right? Because with is a preposition used to mention accompanying detail. Right? So that is illogical in the context. You obviously cannot be alarmed with the news. You're hearing the news and then you're reacting specifically about that news. Right? So having said that, Sandesh, support can help. Sandesh, please, seems to be having trouble. So having said that, right, we need to figure out which is the right preposition that gets hooked on with alarmed. So usually you have alarmed at, right? You can be alarmed at the thought of, at the thought of something. You can also be alarmed by emotions. Now in this context, we are specifically talking about him these people, everybody, right, about this particular news. So we know apt as a preposition is used to refer to something specific, and in this context it's the news of the murder. So yes, the answer, those of you who said option C, that's correct. Everybody was alarmed at the news of his murder, not on or not after. Right? After is a given. It's logical, but in the context we're talking about that specific news. Right? So here again, like I said, when I am practicing spot the error, sentence improvement is just another variation to that, right? Which still requires me to have basic knowledge on grammar. Right? So let's look at one more question type which comes into play when we focus on spot the error. So the next question type that comes to play when we focus on spot the error is phrase substitution. We understand the pattern. There's a question, a couple of words or a phrase in the sentence is underlined or in bold, and we have to look at the options and see which one to replace or substitute it with. Right? So having said that, let's look at our context right now. The children and their specific problems needs to be identified. The children and their specific problems needs to be identified. So problems needs to be is what is underlined. Our options are problem need to be, problems needed to be, problem has been, problems need to be. Right? So quickly, absolutely Gunjan, pretty easy. The reason being this is pertaining to a subject-verb agreement error. Right? So we're talking about problems, more than one problem. So obviously we need, that's a plural subject, so we need a plural verb. And the plural verb is available in option D, problems need to be. That's correct. Always saying D because D is the answer. But what we need to remember or focus on here is, what we need to remember or focus on here is basically that the first topic that we need to focus on is spot the error. Now by doing that, we get to understand very basic grammar constructions. Right? We understand that, okay, these are all could be the possible types of errors, whether it's prepositional errors or errors pertaining to word class or errors pertaining to subject-verb agreement, whatever it is. Right? The other one is, the second one is, we're going to look at what is the second topic to focus. Right? The second topic to focus, before we go there, just a quick understanding for topic 1 itself, right? Finding errors or spot the error. Most of you find it difficult for two reasons. One, probably because you're not aware of all the possible types of errors, right? Two, you haven't practiced enough to know what to look for, right? Some of you by now, if it's an easy one, you're able to identify quickly, which means all of you are very good at subject-verb agreement errors. But if it's an error pertaining to, dangling participle, where the subject is missing, that's a slightly complicated type of error. Or if it's an error pertaining to tenses, some of you have difficulty with, present participle or past perfect tense, things like that, right? So this is somebody else who's also logged in. Hi, Luis Eduardo. Okay. So anyway, coming back on track, let's look at what is the second topic that we need to focus on quickly. Now the second topic that we need to focus on is close passage. Right? Close passage. Now, why close passage? Again, like I said, I gave an example on for fill in the blanks, right? Close passage is a larger context. Right? So let's look at close passage. Let's understand this and let's see how will close passage help us practice a lot more. So we have a short passage in front of us. We have 5 blanks. For those of you who are not aware of what close passage is, like Gunjan, let me quickly explain that. Right now, close passage is basically where you have a short paragraph, right? Sometimes 75 to 150 to 200 words, where every other line has a blank, right? And each blank has 4 or 5 options. You'll have to choose the word that best fits that blank to complete the context. So the strategy or the approach that one needs to take for closed passage is to understand what the context is all about, right? So this particular passage hardly has 6 sentences. And every other sentence has a blank, right? And if you look at it, you have 5 options to choose and select to fit that blank. So having said this, couple of strategies. Usually what happens is when we approach closed passage, we look at the words after the blank, right? Or even before the blank. Right? Why do we normally do this? Because we just saw, right, grouping of words. Alarmed at, one of our spot the error questions we saw, right? So grouping of words. This word usually gets attached or links to a couple of words. So that's one strategy we apply. The second one we do is we look at the meaning that the context is giving. Do I have a positive or a negative meaning? Right? And third is we also look for keywords in the context that will help us arrive at the right answer. So, having looked at these strategies, keywords, meaning that the context is giving, and the grouping of words, we're going to go back and address the paragraph we have in front of us. So, let's quickly read. One strategy that you can do is to skim through the passage to understand what the main message or theme of the passage is. So let's look at it. India's bank NPAs are a major problem, but interest rates high is a bigger problem than NPAs. Low rates can dash India's NPA issue. It could dash projects due to higher cost of capital viable. Companies like GMR, GVK or JP Group will find some dash to stand. Inflation is not as big an issue as it is dash out to be. Okay, so having said that, having read the paragraph, we have an idea about what it is, right? It seems like they're talking about what is causing or what is India's NPA issue, right? So let's look at our options. Now, just focusing or practicing on closed passage will help us figure out strategies or help us when we are practicing other question types as well. We're going to look at what those question types are, but let's quickly finish this first. So for the first blank, the options are placing, keeping, calculating, bringing and assuming. India's bank NPAs are a major problem, but interest rates high is a bigger problem than NPAs. So our clue in the context is what is the bigger problem than NPAs. The first line talks about NPAs are a major problem, but doing what to the interest rates is a bigger problem. Is it placing? Is it keeping? Is it calculating? Is it bringing or assuming? We can safely eliminate options 3, 4 and 5, right? It doesn't make logical sense. So because we're already talking about something that is existing. So, and our clue word is interest rates. So having said that, option 2, keeping interest rates, but keeping interest rates high is a bigger problem than NPAs. So those of you who said option 2, you're correct. Low rates can dash India's NPA issue. So we can use the method of substitution, right? What are our options? Okay, quickly, Jayaraju, you had said assuming, but assuming interest rates high is a bigger problem than NPAs. Remember we said when I'm assuming something which means it is not current or relevant. It does not exist. So how can it be a bigger problem? Just because you assume something, which means you haven't carried it out, right? It's not an action. So obviously you can't have assume, right? Incorrect, illogical. So the second blank, Trivikram says it's option 2. Question: if I have to substitute my own word in option 2, I am looking at this issue needs to be dealt with, right? So what out of my options, undertake, question, project, address or decide, will be ideal to fit the blank? Amber, correct, right? Low rates can address India's NPA issue. Low rates can deal with this particular issue. Look at the first 2 sentences. That's why I said close passage is about context, right? We need to look at the previous sentences as well. India's bank NPAs are a major problem, but keeping interest rates high, that's a clue for you. So if the interest rate is high, that's a bigger problem. So what can address that problem? Low rates, right? I want you to look at the context. So low rates can address India's NPA issue. It could dash projects due to higher cost of capital viable. Now for the third question, I want one of you, or how many ever of you, can you spot a particular keyword which will help you decide the answer option for the third blank? Slowed, interrupts, stalled, hampered and delayed. Slowed, interrupts, stalled, hampered and delayed. Yeah, very good. Kritika, right? Our clue word is could. Now I know that could, would, must, should, shall are all modal verbs, right? Now, which word should or would ideally follow could in this context? Which is the one which is in the base form, right? Think of words with modals. Usually, what's the verb that follows modals? Let me write down a couple of sentences. They can come. We should walk. She will wait. You must go. Right? So look at all the modals here, and the base verb is what is following, right? So obviously for third one, Maulik, it's not slowed. Slowed is not the right option here. What is to stall? To stall means delay, right? Our interrupts can come if I didn't have the S, but I have the S there, so that's why it's incorrect. I can't use that. It could, when I have the modal verb, right, I need interrupt and not interrupts. So the correct form is stall. It could stall projects, it could delay projects due to higher cost of capital viable. I want you to pay attention to the strategies that we're using to identify the answer for each blank, right? I want you to keep that in mind, because we are going to use that to look at other questions. Let's move on to our fourth and fifth blank. Companies like GMR, GVK or JP Group will find some dash to stand. Remember I said pay attention to words that follow the blank, right? To stand, out to be. So look at your options and see which word ideally. Bibin and Tabassum, yes, you're on the right track, and so is Bhavna, right? So can you tell me? Yeah, sorry about that, Dave. Do you want to check at your end as well? So what is that? Ground to stand. Yes, Gunjan, correct. So when you say ground to stand, it's actually an idiomatic expression, right? What does this idiom mean? To stand one's ground. Because Amber, we're talking about an expression that gives out the right meaning in the context, right? So, in the context we are saying companies like GMR, GVK or JP Group will find some ground to stand meaning. Even if they face any difficulties, they will still be able to maintain their position. Priyagi, it's not estate, it's estate. Right, so the obvious answer is ground because that's the right expression, bringing in the right meaning in the context. What about the last sentence? Inflation is not as big an issue as it is dash out to be. Again, can we quickly look at what are the options? Taken, made, built, shaped, brought. I still want you to go back and look at which option goes hand in hand. I'll give you an example. This again is an expression, right? It's a phrase that's used repeatedly. It's a collocation. The last one, inflation is not as big an issue as it is dash out to be. Is it taken out to be, made out to be, built out to be, shaped out to be or brought out to be? Priyadi says option 5. So let me see who's going to give the right answer. So far I have option 5, some of you are saying option 4. Okay, the right option is not 5, sorry. Okay, quickly before I continue with the session, I would request those of you who are having trouble at your end, please do not spam the chat, right? So if you're having trouble, check the settings at your end, check your resolution, and don't disturb the others who are able to concentrate in the class. Some of you are having trouble, hopefully support will help you with that. Tabasum, Ram, Bhavana, correct, right? So made out to be is the right expression. So what does it mean? Made out to be. Yeah, so we're going to look at why it's option B, made. Bibin says, why is it that? So when you say made out to be, basically you're referring to you're portraying something in a certain light, right? Or you're representing this as this is what it is. So I can say, I made out this person to be a liar. So inflation is not as big an issue. So they say, what they're basically saying is, it's not as big an issue as you think it is, right? So when you say made out to be, so let me give you an example sentence. I'm just going to clear everything, right? So when I say made out to be, I'm just going to put he right? So basically what you're saying is, maybe some of them said that this person is a failure, but in reality it's not as such. So I'm just giving you an example sentence. He wasn't such a failure as they made him out to be, right? People said that he was a failure, but he's not. Just to give you an example sentence. So now, having looked at closed passage, let's quickly recollect some of the things that we've done here, right? Let's quickly put down the answers. Right? These are the answers that we came up with. In this context, Shubhendu, brought out to be would be inappropriate. Right? We're talking about something is represented as this. When I say made out to be, it means to represent as being. So, what is being represented here? That inflation is a big issue. So, in the context, they are saying inflation is not as big an issue as it is made out to be. Right? Please understand, these are phrasal verbs, right? Verb plus adverb or preposition collocations. And they have different meanings in different contexts. So you need to keep that in mind as well. Now, having looked at closed passage, what are some of the other topics that you actually get to practice through it? Milind, the fourth one we said again is a expression. Having some ground to stand is an idiomatic expression. Right? So, by focusing on closed passage, couple of other topics that you will benefit from is fill in the blanks. Right? We will also focus on, it will also help us with jumbled sentences. Right? Let's see how. Now look at the context quickly. Now the first sentence says so and so is a problem, and then I have the linking word but, right? It's an antonym, hint word, and then you have interest rates high is a bigger problem than NPAs. Look at that, right? So basically what you're saying is this will also help you in connecting sentences one after the other. So I know that this sentence has to follow the first sentence. So if you have this as A, right? Usually in jumbled sentences we have A, B, C, D, E, F, 5 or 6 sentences all jumbled. So let's say if this was C, you know that C has to follow A because of the keyword major problem. Right? And then you have, so likewise, when you focus on closed passage, you not only get to understand sequence in the context, but you also get to understand how to pay attention to what meaning the sentence gives. Fill in the blanks, jumble sentence. Alright, so a couple of questions I've missed out, let me quickly address that. So someone said, wanted an example of brought out, okay, that particular phrasal verb, okay. Let me quickly write that down. If I missed out your questions, just please repost it. Right? When you say brought out, it means bringing out a particular quality, right, of a person or characteristic. So, someone can bring out the best in you, someone can bring out the worst in you. Right? For example, let's look at what's happening right now. So, some of you are facing problem with the audio, right? So, instead of addressing that amicably, sometimes it brings out the worst in you. You react to the situation. So, let's write that down. The audio problem brought out the worst in you, right? Yeah? So, please understand that phrasal verbs could have different meanings in different contexts. So, it's important for you to understand that. Now, because of phrasal verbs, let's look at another question type that you can go ahead and get to practice, which is nothing but fill in the blanks, right? Initially, when I had started the session, I had mentioned that. So, let's look at this context quickly. A special drive to increase the deposit base of public sector banks has been dashed, and our options are launched, installed, moved, ordered, and accepted. So, in this question, usually, Amber, there will be connecting words or connecting sentences. When it comes to jumbled sentence, we need to look for keywords, like we saw in the closed passage, right? The first two sentences, major problem was a keyword, and they are referring to NPAs. So, bigger problem was the connecting keyword for us. So, here we understand that obviously the keyword here is special drive, and our options are launched, installed, moved, ordered, accepted. Launched means we know is to initiate something, right? So when I'm launching something, which means I am excited about something, because it's either a new venture or something. So here we have the clue word, which is special drive. So when you say a drive itself, which means it's a very organized effort, right, to accomplish a specific purpose. So obviously from the given options, the most logical response is launched. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you focus on closed passage, you will get to practice more of fill in the blanks. You can also get to practice jumbled sentences. You can also get to go ahead and practice even reading comprehension, right? Through taking time to approach closed passage, you have an idea how you can bring in other question types as well. So our last and final topic that we need to focus on is, so we looked at the first two topics. The first one was spot the error or finding errors, and we said, right? So we said spot the error or finding error was the first topic to focus. The second topic we said was closed passage, which will help us with look at all the other things that we looked at in that closed passage. We looked at idiomatic expressions, we looked at other phrases, right? And we also kind of applied certain strategies, and the same strategies you will get to apply in fill in the blanks as well. And jumbled sentences, the reason why I say this is, you need to focus on keywords, connecting words, linking words. So that's one way to So when you just focus on closed passage, you get practice for other question types as well. So that's what we're looking at. So we're narrowing it down and we're saying focus on these topics which will help you practice other topics as well. So what's our final topic? Any guesses? Vocabulary. Right? The final topic to focus is vocabulary. Now, when it comes to vocabulary, it's a very broad context. In order for you to, Jayaraj, in order for you to make it successful in terms of comprehension, vocabulary becomes very easy. Right? Let's look at, when I say vocabulary, we're talking about one-word substitutions, we're talking about synonyms, antonyms, right? Vocabulary is a very, very broad context. And we're also talking about other question types like how we saw in closed passage, right? Idioms and phrases. That will also come under vocabulary. And collocations, grouping of words. So when you focus on vocabulary, you get to kind of go ahead and focus on these three. So let's quickly look at one of each of this topic, one question, right? Let's look at what we have here in front of us. Person who insists on something. Obviously, this is one-word substitution. And remember, some of the approaches we took for one-word substitution is to learn by themes. A specific theme, right? What is the study of something? So categorize things and learn. A person who insists on something. So our options are disciplinarian, stickler, instantaneous, and boaster. So what do you think is the options? Yeah, Suman, I will address your question. So Ashim and Vikram comes back and gives me the answer. So what can I quickly eliminate out of the options? We're talking about, look at the keywords from the one-word phrase, a person. So I can safely eliminate option C. Right? A disciplinarian is somebody who gives a lot of importance to discipline, very strict when it comes to discipline, somebody who enforces it. A stickler, even if you're not familiar with this word, right? You've heard people say, this person is a stickler for timekeeping. Or you can be a stickler for neatness. Right? You just can't live in a mess. You cannot stand dirt. You always want your surroundings to be neat and clean. A boaster, again, somebody who boasts about themselves, right? In a proud or self-admiring way. So obviously we know this is the answer. Now the reason why one-word substitutions is important is it not only expands your vocabulary when it comes to reading comprehension, closed passage, jumbled sentences, and when you come across new or unfamiliar words, it will help you understand the context because you know the word, the meaning of that word, right? So it's very, very critical for you to practice as many one-word substitutions as possible, right? Now, another approach that you could take is obviously knowledge on root words, right? For most of you, maybe all the other words you're familiar with, disciplinarian, boaster, right? Quickly dissect words and try to figure out. Yes, it is a challenge, Nipa. I will not discount it to remember all new and unfamiliar words, right? But the idea is for you to get familiar with common prefixes, suffixes, and root words, right? So that's the idea. Obviously, in the English language, there is no boundary to the number of words that are there, and one person cannot possibly know all the words, right? So we need to narrow down and look at most possible or common prefixes, suffixes, and roots, which will help us. So there are clue words, and there are Latin root words as well from which you can figure out the meaning if you're familiar with that. Right? Summer and Modi, again, just to answer your question, you shouldn't ideally look at these many seconds for a question. The reason being you would be in a position to complete a question even within 5 seconds. Right? It depends on what your strength is. I'll address that question towards the end. Let's look at one more, right, in terms of synonyms and antonyms, which is also part of vocabulary. Right? I have error, misadventure, misgiving, ambiguity, and blunder. So we're looking at a synonym for this word, error, out of these options. Right? A quick dissection of the word, how to approach it. Dissect the word err. I'm sure you're familiar with the famous phrase, right? To err is human. To forgive, divine. Right? To err is human, to forgive, divine. So we understand from this statement or from this expression that err means mistake. Right? So as humans, we tend to make mistakes. So having said that, let's understand the options that we have. So what do we have? Misadventure. Right? Misadventure is something, an unfortunate event, right? Like a mishap. So that's not what the context is saying. Right? This is a mishap. Misgiving. When you say misgiving, you're talking about not trusting, doubting, doubt or distrust. Right? And not to show you apprehension, basically. Ambiguity. When I say ambiguity, you're talking about in a state of confusion. Again, doubtful, uncertain. And blunder is our answer, which Ashim got. Right. Right? A blunder is nothing but a mistake. Typically, you make it because you're careless or you're ignorant. Right? It's a mistake. If you are not familiar with blunder having the meaning of mistake, yes, it's going to be difficult for you to arrive at the answer. Right? But from the given word, you can look at dissecting the words. Ambiguity means unclear, that's right, Manik. Right? So, this is one way of looking at it. Let's see if you're able to arrive at one more. We're going to look at antonym. Remiss. So, the options are forgetful, indifferent, attentive, harmful. We're looking at an antonym for this word remiss. Now, remember I said one way to approach synonym antonyms is also to have knowledge on root words. Right? In fact, remiss has a Latin root, which means the meaning is slackened. To slacken. To slacken means to fall back, right? Negligent. So if you are familiar with this root, then it's going to be easy for you to arrive at the answer. So Raja Venkateshan gave us the answer. The options are forgetful, indifferent, attentive and harmful. So obviously we're looking at the opposite of this. So somebody who's negligent can be forgetful. Indifferent, right? It's definitely not if you are slackening on it, it can also be you're not bothered about it, right? Attentive, on the other hand, is obviously the antonym of this. Harmful, unrelated word here. So basically, if I'm aware of certain Latin roots, It helps me. Right? Back to Suman's question. So for that, I need to go back to close passage. Yeah. So coming back here, or we can even look at the fill in the blanks context, right? Just to answer Suman's question. Now Suman, look at this context. A special drive to increase the deposit base of public sector banks has been dashed, right? I'm looking at 5 options. And in the context, I need to look at which is my keyword or key phrase. So what was launched or what was conducted to increase the deposit base of public sector banks? Right? Something was done to increase this. What was that? So usually your keyword will answer questions like what or who, which is nothing but the subject of the sentence. Right? So Suman, in this case, we're looking at this was what was launched. Right? A special drive. So how do I identify keywords from a context? Right? Ask questions. Ask questions and you will get to your keyword or the highlighting word. Surya, I completely agree with you. That's why it's even more important for us to focus on vocabulary as a context. So let's quickly do a recap of what we did today, right? So we were looking at what are the 3 topics that we can focus on which will help us practice other question types as well. The first thing that we said is we need to have a good knowledge on basic grammar concepts, right? And for us to get a hand or have an edge over that is to practice as many spot the error questions or finding error questions, right? That way it will help us with respect to other question types, which is a variation of finding errors like phrase substitution or sentence improvement, right? So that is the first topic that we need to focus on because it's important and we know that finding error, spot the error is definitely one of the top questions that will be asked in the exam, right? The second topic we said was close passage. Why close passage? It helps us with context. When I say context, it will help us with questions like theme detection, right? What is the main focus of this passage? It will also help us with question types like fill in the blanks. Because again, we are applying the same strategies that we look at for fill in the blanks. It will also help us with jumbled sentences because it gives us keywords, highlighting words in the context, connecting or linking words, but, while, although, right? It will help us with sequencing sentences. We know what to look for. And it will also help with reading comprehension as such, right? Close passage, like I said, is all about context. We need to skim through quickly, identify keywords, which will give us an idea about what the overall theme of the passage is. So, and through close passage, we also get to spend time understanding idiomatic expressions, other phrases like phrasal verbs, collocations, right, etc. And the last and very important topic that a lot of you said, right, is vocabulary. Why vocabulary? Because it's almost predominant in every other question type, right? So, what are some of the specific question types that I can focus on to expand vocabulary is obviously one-word substitutions. You can also focus on idioms and phrases, right? Synonyms and antonyms, and some of the approaches or strategies that you can take is root words and thematic study when it comes to one-word substitutions. Right. So, like I said, Suman, some of these question types is interrelated, right? In close passage, we also kind of looked at modal verbs. So, spot the error will also help in close passage. Like I said, in English, that's the advantage we have, right? Every other question type is interlinked. So, when I say focus on these 3 topics, it will kind of help you branch out and look at other topics as well, right? That was the whole idea. So, remember we looked at could as a modal verb in that close passage. I think it was 3rd blank, if I'm not wrong. Yeah? Okay, so we've come to the end of the session. Please repost if I missed out on any question. I'm not too sure. Really, yes, we have we have kind of covered, the most common ones in our sessions, right? And we're trying to kind of compile a list which is in progress. So we've covered a lot of sessions for root words as such, right? So I want to just take time to thank those of you who've been actively participating. And if there's any specific question type that you would like us to cover, we can do that in our upcoming sessions. So feel free to post that as well. Right? Okay, so any other questions, go ahead and put it down in your chat. And we will see you guys with another exciting topic, right, in this IBPS 2016 for you, the series that we've started, right? We're going to come back with another exciting topic for you so you benefit out of it. And I'm sure you're using the free trial pack that we've given you, so do that. Don't worry about it, Vikas, not an issue. We are accommodative of everybody. As long as at the end of the day you have learned something, it's helpful for us. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you guys in the next session. Take care.